So good morning everyone, my name is Lalit Soni and you are watching Drishti IAS. In this live session, we will be discussing in the Indian Express newspaper. As usual, we will go through important articles, we will try to understand what is going on in our country and what is the reason behind that and how it is relevant for our examination. So let's start with the discussion. We will be going through the practice question first, which was given to you in the previous lecture, and then we will be moving to the next part, that is fact of the day, and then geography through maps. This is a new section which we have introduced. Herein we will be talking about certain maps and we will be talking about certain details which we can gather from that map. Okay, so let's start with the first thing, that is practice question. After that we will be moving to the fact of the day, geography through the map, and then these are the you can say article for our important you can say discussion, that is NIA can investigate unscheduled offences. So here Supreme Court has expanded the power of the National Investigation Agency, so we will talk about that. Then we'll go to the next one, that is what is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Okay, so IPF. Okay, now recently you must have heard about that we have lost a gem, that is Zakir Hussain. Okay, his death was caused by this particular disease, so we will be talking about this disease, and you can say that this becomes important because it is in the news. Okay, then moving further, loan write-offs by the banks. So recently there are, in the last few years you will be seeing that loans has been write off by the banks. We will be seeing what is the loan write off and how it is impacting the banking sector. Okay, then for your own read there will be one article, in the end there will be a practice question. Okay, so let's start our discussion. First is practice question here. What are the Santa Ana winds? Yesterday we have talked about these winds with respect to the forest fire in Malibu. Okay, so here you can say moist winds blowing from the Pacific towards the coast. Okay, so they are talking about the Pacific towards the coast. Now that is not the case. When we are talking about the Santa Ana winds, they are coming from the Great Basin towards the California coast. Okay, so we can say that that is not correct. Coming to the next one, warm dry winds blowing from the Great Basin towards the Californian coast. Now this is your right answer. Please note that these are warm and the dry you can say winds. Okay, warm and dry winds, and because of which, since they do not have the much humidity, and because of which ultimately they can lead to the forest fires. Okay, so that is about your Santa Ana winds. Option B is your correct answer. Now moving further, here we are offering you ISGS foundation course at our new center, that is basically Noida. When we are talking about this course, this has been the courses has been started, admissions are open, so you can go and visit the center and get enrolled. Other than that, here you can see Prayagraj Center, Lucknow Center and the Karol Bagh Center. We are starting UPSC GS Foundation course at different times over here. At Prayagraj, 2nd of January 2025, Hindi and English medium both. We are having this different timing. For Hindi medium, it is 6 p.m. For English medium, that is 5:30 p.m. Lucknow, that is 23rd December 2024. Hindi and English medium, 11:30 a.m. And at the Karol Bagh Center, 23rd December 2024, we are starting an English medium batch at 8 a.m. Okay, so you can visit the center and you can get enrolled. Other than that, you can call on this number for any kind of information related to the Noida center. Okay, now let's move further and start with the fact of the day. Now, disease X. Now, when we are talking about this particular term, disease X, this has been in news. Okay, now this is a hypothetical term. Okay, so here you can see a hypothetical term by WHO in 2018 for an unknown pathogen. Okay, unknown pathogen which is capable of triggering a global pandemic. Now the thing is, we do not know about this pathogen. Now we are just assuming that there are certain pathogens which have the potential to cause a global pandemic like COVID, which has happened earlier as well. Okay, so a hypothetical term by WHO in 2018 for unknown pathogen capable of triggering a global pandemic, highlighting the need for the preparedness against the emerging diseases. Okay, origin if you talk about, so emerged after the 2014 to 16 West African Ebola pandemic. Okay, after Ebola pandemic, we have gone for a term that is disease X. Now the source can originate from virus, bacteria, parasites, fungi or prions. Now basically we are saying that these are all the factors which can be responsible, these are all the pathogens which can be responsible for diseases. Since we do not know that which kind of pathogen it is, so that is why we are saying that disease X can be because of these pathogens. Okay, now the term disease X is for the preparedness. When we are talking about like COVID hit us. Okay, when COVID hit us, we did not have any kind of preparedness for the COVID. Now considering that there is something like that which can happen in the future as well, so if you want to be ready for that, so that is why WHO has come up with the term that is disease X. Now coming to the next one, over 300 emerging diseases since 1940 70% of are the zoonotic diseases. 70% are zoonotic diseases. That means that these diseases has came from the animal kingdom towards the human one. Okay, so these are the zoonotic diseases. Risk factor, if we talk about, so high biodiversity regions, weak healthcare areas, and when we talk about the global connectivity, zoonotic spillovers, deforestation, agriculture, antimicrobial resistance, bioterrorism, lab accidents, and the climate change, all these factors can be responsible for a pandemic. Okay, because of all these factors, let's say here they are talking about the high biodiversity region. That means that prevalence of various animals is there, prevalence of various pathogen is there, so that can come from that particular, you can say, area to human kingdom as well. Okay, that is one thing. Second thing is weak healthcare areas, like the African countries. You must have heard that various diseases are prevalent in the African continent. Other than that, here you can say zoonotic spillovers, so we have already talked about that. And agriculture, antimicrobial resistance is one of the concern which is raising nowadays, because wherein we are saying that the various virus or the various pathogens, they are becoming immune to various drug therapies. Okay, so that is antimicrobial resistance. Okay, so that is about your disease X. Now here you can say, if you take a simple view of that, so here you can say, where will the next disease X come from? Now we do not know what is disease X, so we are saying that from which areas that is most likely to come. So first is zoonotic viruses. We have discussed that viruses which are hosted in the animals. So let's say when we are talking about the bats, etc., we have talked about the COVID earlier. Okay, so in that we realized that the bats were the natural reservoir for that. So similarly, there are various animals which are natural reservoir or the host of these viruses. So from them it can come to any you can say humans. So these are zoonotic viruses. Second is the latent viruses. Okay, thawing permafrost can release the virus dating back up to million years ago. So because of the ice caps which are there in the Arctic and Antarctic region, there are various pathogens which are actually in the frozen form over there. Now when the ice is melting, there are high chances that they can come back to infecting the people. Okay, so that is there. Coming to the next one, synthetic viruses. These are the basically the lab experiments, when we are talking about if there is some kind of accident which has happened in the lab, because of which also, or you can say some kind of gene mutation which can happen in the lab, because we are dealing with the biotechnology on the daily basis nowadays. So that is something from where we can get this disease X. Okay, now simply speaking, disease S is something which is a hypothetical term for those potential pathogens which can cause global pandemics. Okay, now let's move further and start with the next thing, that is geography through map. In this map you can see there are various physiographical features which are given in of India. So here for 1 or 2 days we will be discussing these maps only. So if you look at this particular area here, so you know that we have here we have Himalayas. Okay, beyond this we have Trans Himalayas. Then Himalayas are further divided into 3 parts, which we will be talking later. So if we talk about the Himalayas expansion, you can say that it is something like this, and then in the Purvanchal it will be like this. Okay, so these are called as the Purvanchal Himalayas. Okay, other than that these are your normal Himalayas which we are talking about. Okay, other than that Himalayas are divided into 3 parts, which we will be discussing when we will be taking up topic of Himalaya. After that, if you come little bit south of that, or the in the foothills of Himalayas, you will be seeing that there is this Terai region. When we talk about this region over here, this region over here, that is basically your Terai region, that is the Nepal and the, you can say, upper part of the UP. Okay, after that we have these Gangetic plains. These are the Gangetic plains which are there. And when we talk about the Thar and the Punjab plains, etc., these are extension of these plains. Okay, these are basically plain area, and this is the extension of this. Okay, now here this is the area of your semi-arid region, because obviously when we are talking about the Gangetic plains, these are having the alluvial soil, these are fertile. Okay, coming to the next one here, this is semi-arid because this is forming a kind of an ecotone between the Thar desert and the fertile areas. Okay, so this is the Thar desert and this is semi-arid region. After that you will be seeing that we have a central highland. You know that this is the peninsular India. Okay, this is the oldest part of our, you can say, when we are talking about the physiological features, this is the oldest part. Now this is the peninsular plateau, and here we have central part is Deccan plateau. These are the central highlands. Okay, then we have eastern Ghats and the western Ghats and the eastern Ghats. Okay, So this is the basic division of, you can say, India into various physiological parts. Okay. Now here, if you can see in this particular map, these are your various same physiographical features has been shown over here. Basically, these are the area by which we call them. Okay, so here you can see these are Himalayas. Then these are the Indo-Gangetic plains. Okay, this is your Aravalli range. This is your Thar desert. Okay, this is Gujarat plains. Then coming to the next part over here, these are the Vindhya range. These are your central highlands. Okay, now central highlands, in central highlands we have Vindhyas, Satpuras. Okay, then we have Chota Nagpur plateau. Now Chota Nagpur plateau is the region where most of our mineral deposits are found, so that is also important for us. Okay, now moving further, here we have Deccan plateau. We have already discussed one part, these western ghats. Western ghats are basically the escarpments. Escarpment means that generally if we see, mountains are like this, you can say, generally speaking, mountains will be like this. Okay, but if because of some kind of erosion, when we talk about the ocean and all, so you know that ocean has been hitting the rocks over here, and because of which these rocks basically has eroded, and now the physiographical feature over there looks like this. Okay, okay, now this slant part, or the, you can say, with high slope, that is called as the escarpments, because of the removal of the degraded or the eroded part over here. The slopes are very steep, and these are called as the escarpments. So western ghats are basically escarpments. When you look at the eastern ghats, you will be saying that eastern ghats have the, you can say, a higher coast, or you can say the length of the coast is higher. So when we talk about the western ghats, you will be seeing that there are high, or the, very high altitude mountains are there. When we talk about the eastern ghats, the coast over here, mostly you will be finding that they are having greater lengths. Okay, then here you can see this is the western ghat, eastern ghats. This is the Deccan plateau. This is the area where your eastern ghats and the western ghats are meeting. You can tell me in the comment box that where it happens in the you can say there is a very important protected area. Okay, so you can tell me that where eastern ghats and the western ghats are meeting. Okay, now this is about the physiographical features. So in the next map, we'll be discussing them in you can say detail. We'll be going through various parts like Himalayas. We'll be discussing Himalayas in a very prominent way. Then we'll be going to the plains, then Deccan plateau. Like that, we'll be moving further. Okay, so now let's move further and start with today's topic, that is your NIA's power has been enhanced. So let's see how. NIA can investigate unscheduled offences linked with the scheduled ones. Okay. Now, when we talk about the NIA is the National Investigation Agency, and they are being given some particular jobs. Okay. So when we are talking about this listed, wherein you can say NIA can go and look into these offences. These offences where these are listed are called as the scheduled offences. Okay, scheduled because they have been scheduled in a form of list. So basically there are scheduled offences wherein NIA can go for the, you can say, investigation. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so there are listed offences which are there in which NIA can go for the investigation. These are called as the scheduled offences. Now there are certain offences, these are not scheduled, like which are out of the jurisdiction of NIA. Okay, now court has said that even in some cases where there are some offences which are out of the jurisdiction of NIA, in those offences also NIA can investigate if these offences are somehow linked with these particular scheduled offences. Let's say there was a particular UAPA. Okay, now in UAPA, you know that NIA has the power for the investigation. Now, along with a person who is involved in UAPA, let's say Mr. A was involved in UAPA. Okay, and along with that, he has actually gone for some kind of other offense. Okay, which is not scheduled over here. He has gone for some kind of unscheduled offense. Let's say theft. Let's say you can say some kind of murder. Okay, now in that case also NIA can investigate this offense as well if this is linked with the UPA. Okay, so basically they are saying that if there is an accused who has performed some kind of activity which is against the sovereignty and integrity of India, and ultimately he was tried under UPA, and then you will be seeing that he has in the past gone for some murders which are having some kind of link with that particular offense. So NIA can investigate those offenses as well. As a matter of fact, if let's say there is accused A who was booked under UAPA, and this particular accused A has done or outsourced his one of the job to Mr. X, and he has committed a theft. Okay, now NIA can investigate Mr. X as well. Okay, so here along with the crime, if there is a accused who is connected with this particular schedule offense, then they can go and investigate that as well. Okay, so that is about your expansion of the power of the NIA by the Supreme Court. This has been said by the Supreme Court or observed by the Supreme Court while they were interpreting the section 8 of NIA, which is basically giving them the investigation power. So let's say, in a boost to National Investigation Agency powers, the Supreme Court ruled that the power of agency are not restricted to probing offences mentioned in the schedule of NIA Act or accused committing such scheduled offences. So basically they are saying that these power of investigation is not restricted to scheduled one only, they can go beyond that as well. Okay, now interpreted section 8 of the NIA Act, while investigation scheduled offences, the NIA can also investigate any other offence which the accused is alleged to have committed, provided that the other offence is connected with the scheduled offence. So they are saying that if the other offence is connected with the scheduled offence, then they can investigate into that as well. Now here you can see, when we are talking about the section 8, so here they have observed that the expression the accused cannot be restricted only to the accused in respect of whom the investigation is being carried out by the NIA for scheduled offence. The NIA which is carrying on an investigation into scheduled offence can investigate any other offence which any other accused may have committed, provided such offence is also connected with the scheduled ones. As I told you that if Mr. A has given a job to Mr. X and Mr. X is connected with Mr. A who is been investigated under the particular scheduled offence, in that case also NIA can go for investigating that unscheduled offence and that person who has committed the unscheduled offence. Again I am telling you, let's say there is a scheduled offence which is there in the NIA. Now this scheduled offence is there and there is Mr. A who has actually done that particular act and under which NIA is basically investigating this person. Now meanwhile they got to know that Mr. A has outsourced a job to Mr. X. You must understand that supari dena. Okay, so let's say he has given a job to Mr. X. Now Mr. X has performed an unscheduled offence. Okay, so he has performed an unscheduled offence. So NIA does not have power over the unscheduled offence. So NIA technically should not be investigating this person, but since this person is connected with Mr. A who has performed an scheduled offence, so in that case they can go and investigate that person as well. So this is about this article which we have discussed now. Now we can move further to the next one here. Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis was to Zakir Hussein's death. Now recently, we have lost this person who was a great tabla player, or when we are talking about this particular instrument, he has a magic. Okay, but anyways, recently he died because of this particular disease, that is idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. When we are talking about the term idiopathic, that means that the, you can say, origin of this particular disease is not traced, or we do not know that how or because of which this particular disease is happening. Okay, so we will be seeing that what happens in this particular disease and how it is important for our examination. Okay, so tabla maestro Zakir Hussain passed away on Sunday. Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis is a lung disease because of which he lost his life. Okay, so it is a lung disease first of all. Okay, now coming to the next one, it is a chronic progressive lung disease characterized by the scarring of the lung tissues leading to irreversible loss of lung functions. Exact cause of IFF is unknown, and that is why it is called as idiopathic. Okay, we have discussed this much. Now when we are talking about this particular disease, that is interstitial lung disease. Okay, interstitial lung disease, that means that it involves the inflammation and the scarring of the lungs. Okay, inflammation and the scarring of the lungs. How does IFF lead to the lung scarring? Now let's see what is happening inside the body. Now let's say if you get hit by a stone, or let's say there is some kind of a cut which you have got, so your body has the self healing power. It will start to clot the blood, and then ultimately you will be seeing that the skin is healing in a matter of time. Now similarly, if lungs are getting scarred or lungs are getting injured by some kind of interaction with the pollutants or any kind of dust, etc. Now body has the self-healing power. Body will go and they will start a process wherein some kind of fibers will be formed, and then they will be patching that particular injury. Now this is a normal procedure if there is if it is functioning fine, if the lungs are fine and you are having a healthy body. So this particular function is regulated. Okay, after the time when they know that now the work is done, that particular process will stop. But what if this particular process does not stop? Okay, so basically these fibers which we are saying that these will keep on forming, and because of which they will lead to the inflammation or scarring of the lung. Now this is what this particular disease is. Now once this scarring happened, because of which because of the extra fiber which is there, because of which your lungs cannot expand, they cannot allow the oxygen to be inside. So that when we are talking about the lungs, that they expand and compress, so that expansion will not be happening over there. So ultimately you will not be getting as much oxygen inside your body. So ultimately after that will lead to the shortness of breath, etc. All these things can happen. Okay, so that is how it starts. So here you can say IFF is believed to result from the problems in a way that body deals with the injury. The body's healing process play a critical role in scarring. When the lungs experience injury due to the environmental factor, dust, smoke or infections, or possibly even from the autoimmune responses. Autoimmune responses are also responsible over here. The body attempts to repair the damages. Now this repair is controlled and temporary. As far as you have the injury, that repair will be there. After that it will be stopped. Okay. Now in IPF, their repair process becomes dysregulated. You will not be able to stop it. This will go on. Now the body overproduce the collagens and other fibrous material which are basically produced during the healing process. Now excess of these particular you can say fibrous material, etc., that will lead to the scarring. Excessive scar tissues forms which progressively impairs the lung function. These abnormal response to the lungs, when we are talking about this abnormal response to the you can say injury, leads to the irreversible scarring. And there are other factors like genetic factors can also be responsible for that. Genetic factors, environmental exposures and the chronic inflammation are all likely to help the triggering this particular issue. Okay, now what are the symptoms? Obviously functioning of the lung is basically been hindered. So what are the symptoms? You can say the lungs to thicken and stiffen, making their expansion harder, impacting the breathing. So here you will be seeing that shortness of breath, dry cough, fatigue, weight loss. Over the time oxygen level in the blood will you can say drop, and pulmonary hypertension, heart failure or the respiratory failure can happen. These are the symptoms. Now here you can say IMF is also known as the especially target the interstitium. Okay, so we have seen that it is a interstitial lung disease. So it is targeting the interstitium, which is the tissue surrounding the air sacs. We have air alveoli or air sacs inside the body. Okay, making it difficult for the oxygen to enter the bloodstream. Now because this is the air sacs are basically the one through which the you can say air or the oxygen is getting inside your body. So this will be you can say hindered, and ultimately the oxygen level inside your blood you can say blood or the body will drop. Now who is at risk? So basically nearly, if you see, nearly 0.09 to 1.30 per 10,000. This is the burden of the disease, or this is the risk of the disease. Okay. Now when we talk about the people having age more than 50 years can be you can say at the risk of this particular disease. Okay, when we are talking about the male and female, men are basically more vulnerable to diseases. Okay, now this can become very when we are talking about it is likely that you will be having this disease if you are a smoker. Okay, so smokers genetic predispositions, if we are if that are there, prolonged exposure to dust, wood or metal particles, if you have, then there are high chances that you will be exposed to this disease. How do diagnosis treatment works? Okay, high resolution CT scan, pulmonary function test and lung biopsies can lead to the diagnosis of this particular disease. Now it is essential to rule out all the other possibilities where we know that these are the reason for the diseases. There are various other lung diseases are also there. So first you have to rule out all the possibilities, then only you will be seeing that. Now if you don't have any explanation, then you can say that that is an IPF. Okay. Now moving further, anti-fibrotic drugs. Since we are saying that there is this excess fibrous material which is forming, so you can go for the anti-fibrotic drugs. Now these drugs are basically there to slow down the process. Okay, now we do not have the treatment yet. This is to slow down the process and delay the you can say the death, because once you are exposed to this, there are high chances that within 4-5 years you will be dying. Okay, so treatment is aimed only at relieving the symptoms and slow disease progressions which is there. Now here we have already discussed that smoking, environmental exposure, chronic viral infections, abnormal acid reflux and family history of disease, that is genetic diseases, these can be the cause of the this can be a cause, because we do not know the exact cause. Other than that, resultant scarring and the honeycombing in the lungs restricts the breathing and the oxygen exchange, which we have already seen. Now what are the common symptoms? Here you can say shortness of breath, chronic dry cough, fingers clubbing, and here you can say fatigue, weakness, weight loss, that is there. And if we talk about male and female, so in the males it is seen more frequently. Okay, so this is about your fibrosis. Okay, now moving further to the next one. When we talk about the Constituent Assembly, recently our Prime Minister again has vouched for the UCC. Okay, so in the Constituent Assembly also there was this debate wherein this was discussed that whether we should have UCC or not. Okay, so you can say Dr. B.R. Ambedkar or K.M. Munshi, these are the people who are in the favor of UCC. Okay, so let's see what kind of argument they have put forward. So Prime Minister has recently pitched for the nationwide uniform civil code. The Constituent Assembly decided that it would go for the future elected government to implement the UCC. It was said that the state should work in in the direction of implementing the UCC. That is why they have put it under DPSP. They have not made a provision, specific provision, but they have put it under DPSPs, that this is a directive to the future governments. Okay. Now here you can say to implement the UCC, Baba Sahib Ambedkar advocated the ending religious based personal laws. Okay, so that is we know that reason right now when we are talking about the civil laws. Okay, so let's say when we talk about the succession, when we talk about the maintenance, etc., in this marriage, divorces, we are having these personal laws which are impacting the you can say civil laws. So right now there is this debate whether we should go for the uniform civil code or not. Okay. Now when we talk about the criminal laws, we already have uniform codes, we already have codified the criminal laws, but in the civil sphere we are still having the personal laws which are influencing them a great deal. Okay. Now UCC refers to a common set of laws governing personal matters, succession, marriage, inheritance, etc., instead of the current system in which the religious communities have their own set of personal laws. Okay. So the UCC was discussed as Article 35. Initially it was discussed as Article 35, then it was introduced into DPSPs and renumbered as Article 44. Okay. So Constituent Assembly has discussed about it, they have voted about it. Now criticism of UCC. Now there was various debates which are going on in the Constituent Assembly. So debate on November 23rd, 1948. Article on UCC to be included under the directive principle of state policy. Broad idea is that the state ought to incorporate the in the policy making, but would not legally be bound by this. Okay, so if they have put it under the fundamental rights like that, so it would be bound by the state. But the thing is, they have put it under the DPSP, so states are not bound by it. But if they want it to happen in the future course of action. Okay, now that is there. So they have said that the state shall endeavor to secure for its citizen a uniform civil code throughout the territory of India. Okay, so in the future they should go for the uniform civil code in the throughout the country. Now some members like the Muhammad Ismail Sahab, they have criticized. They have said that this particular idea of going for the uniform civil code will actually hinder the diversity. This will ultimately form a uniform sphere, or ultimately it will hit the diversity of the nation. So here you can see the idea may be to secure harmony through uniformity, but for that purpose it is not necessary to regiment the civil law of the people, including the personal laws. Such regimentation will bring discontent and disharmony in the society. Okay. Now Munshi says that it is not tyrannical. Now they are saying that we are not going for a particular community or something like that. Okay, so here you can say Munshi disagreed. Having a UCC would be tyrannical to minorities. So it was not his opinion. They have said that this is not the case, that it will not be tyrannical to minorities only. Okay, now here you can say nowhere in the advanced Muslim countries the personal laws of each minority has been recognized so sacrosanct as to prevent the enactment of the civil code. So they have said that in various Muslim countries also there are civil codes which are there. Okay, moving further, there were many among Hindus who did not like the uniform civil code because they feel the personal law of inheritance succession is really part of their religion. Now in the Hindus also there was this feeling that these are the part of their religion and it should not be tweaked with. But the thing is, if you don't, then ultimately you will not be able to advocate women's rights. Okay, ultimately you will never be giving equality to the women, because when we talk about this you can say personal laws, they are highly biased against women. Okay, so here you can say, but in that case you will never give, for instance, equality to women. Okay, here you can say discrimination against women, you get any amount of discrimination against women, and if that is the part of Hindu religion or the Hindu religious practice, you cannot pass a single law which would elevate the position of Hindu woman to that of a man. Okay, so they are saying that if we are sticking to the personal laws, so we will never be able to give the equality to women or the specific rights to the woman, because ultimately these when we talk about the fundamental rights, even though we have inserted that there is a right to equality, but if you are following the personal laws, we will not be able to ensure equality to the woman. Okay, so that is there. Then moving further, here you can say there was no reason for not having a uniform civil code. Now here religion must be restricted to the sphere appertaining to it, and rest of the life must be regulated so that India evolves as a strong and consolidated nation. Okay, so they have said that the religious aspects should be restricted to the religious arena only. When we talk about the civil aspect or the secular aspect, then in that case you should have a uniform code. Then moving further, Ambedkar, they have not B.R. Ambedkar has not given the pros or cons or benefits or losses of the UCC, but he has advocated UCC. Okay, so here you can see Muslim personal laws were not immutable and uniform through the whole of India. Till 1935, the Northwest Frontier Province followed Hindu laws in the matter of succession and in other matters. Okay, so basically in that particular region there was no concept of Muslim personal law. Okay, so that was regulated by the Hindu laws, because in this particular area, when we talk about the Northwest Frontier Province, so the rules 1935 there was princely states which were there. Okay, so they were following the Hindu laws in the matter of succession. So I do not understand why religion should be given this vast expensive jurisdiction to prevent the legislature from encroaching upon the field. Okay, so they are saying that why should we give so much power to the religion? Then when the task is to reform the social system full of inequalities and discrimination, it is quite impossible for anybody to conceive that the personal law shall be excluded from the jurisdiction of the state. So basically they are saying that if we are talking about the social reforms, then we have to reform the personal laws as well. We have to remove the personal laws and then come up with the uniform civil code. That was the opinion of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Okay, Ambedkar added that all that the state is claiming is the power to legislate. Okay, so and that is when we are talking about republic, when we talk about a government, so obviously government should have the power to legislate. So that is what has been said by the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So that was the kind of debate which was there in the Constituent Assembly. Okay, now we can move further to the next article over here. IT export continues to register strong growth. Service exports placed goods for the first time in 2024. Merchandise deficit at the record high. Now here you can see, if this particular picture, if you are able to understand, you will be seeing that these are your goods export. Okay, and these are your service exports. So in 2024 you will be seeing that all the time service exports are lesser than the goods export. Recently in the last month, when we are talking about the November, so here you will be seeing that the export of good has declined and the first time exports of services are rising. Okay, now whether it is good or bad, now when we are talking about a country like India, services are restricted, or you can say services are basically the white collar jobs which are restricted to a particular class. Okay, which are restricted to a particular section of the society, and these are not creating as much jobs. Okay, now goods are, on the other hand, this is a labor intensive sector wherein jobs are created. So if we are going for the exports which are service based, obviously we should thrive for the, you can say, exports in services as well as in the goods, but we have to make sure that the goods exports are higher. Okay, because goods exports are the one which will create the jobs. Okay, so that is the one thing. While the service exports contribute to the earning valuable foreign exchange, this segment has a bias in the favor of the upper income groups, the high paying white collar jobs. Okay, weakness in the goods export is a concern given that the country needs to generate upward of the 80 lakhs jobs annually, and the sluggishness in this segment would impact the sector producing the large scale employment such as the export of the garments and jewelry. So basically it will impact the employment situation. So that is what has been given in this article. There are certain things which we will discuss over here. Service exports surpasses the good exports, which we have seen already. Now moving further, record mercantile or merchandise trade deficit driven by the rising oil and the gold imports, because of which if the imports are higher, that means that you are paying in dollars. Okay, so ultimately what will happen is that imports are greater than exports. If imports are greater than export, that means that you are having a trade deficit. Okay, so that is there. India's trade deficit reached a historic high of 37.84 billion US dollars. Okay, growth in the imports, gold imports surged 3 times a year on basis. Then when we are talking about the oil imports, that has also risen. Why? Because obviously we are the third largest consumer of oil, that is there. Second thing, gold imports recently, you must have heard that the prices of gold are rising. Okay, and even world over, central banks are also going for importing the gold. They are building a reservoir because of the you can say dollars are getting stronger. Okay, so because of which the gold imports has increased. Now coming to the impacts over here, or key challenges what are there. So weak goods demands, that means that throughout the world there is this lack in the goods demand. Okay, so global economic slowdown and the high shipping cost impacted the goods export. Why high shipping cost? Because of the issue which has happened in the Red Sea, that Houthi rebels were creating chaos. Other than that, also there are geopolitical situations which are not very good, and because of which costs are high. Now impacts on the job, weak performance in the mercantile that affect the sectors like garments and the judiciary, which are labor intensive sectors which are creating jobs. Okay, so that is the idea from which we have taken from this particular article. Now moving further to the next one, loan write-offs help banks to show lower NPAs. NPAs are basically non-performing assets. Banks has given loan, and for a particular period of time, if the installments are not coming, so bank will go and declare that as a non-performing assets. Now if these non-performing assets are on the balance sheet of the bank, that means that banks are not performing very well. Okay, there are much of the assets which are non-performing. So what they do is they write it off. Okay, so they take it out from the balance sheet. Okay, recently that these are the trends which has been happening. So a massive loan write-off of 9.9 lakh crore in the last 5 financial year has helped bank to show a big decline in the non-performing assets. So they are writing it off and saying that our non-performing assets are lower, but that is not the case. You are working on a basis wherein you are writing off the loans and then you are artificially clearing the balance sheet. Okay, so let's see what is non-performing what is the write-off, what are the concept related to it. Okay, so concept of loan write-offs: when a bank remove a loan from their balance sheet after it becomes a non-performing asset overdue for the 90 plus days. If a loan which is overdue for the 90 plus days, that is called as the non-performing assets, and ultimately the accumulation of these non-performing assets will be reflected in your balance sheet. That will say that the health of the bank is not very good. So what they do is they write it off. Okay, so they remove a loan from their balance sheet. Okay, so that is basically your writing off a loan. What is the purpose? Purpose is to clean up the balance sheet and reduce the gross NPA ratio, making the bank's financial appear healthier. Okay, so if banks financials are healthier, that means that the when we are talking about the market, these works on the sentiments, these works on the trust. Okay, now if a bank is having more NPAs, that means that they are not able to recover the loans. Okay, so the trust might get you can say there will be some kind of attack that will be there on the trust of the bank, and that is why they want to make sure their balance sheets are clean. Okay, now however, recovery efforts on the return of loans continue under the advance under the collection. Now they write it off, but they try to get it recovered. They will make efforts to get it recovered, but the recovery rates are not very high. This is somewhere around 18 to 20%. Okay, so that is the reason that mostly these write-off loans are, you can say, losses to the bank. Okay, now impact on the NPAs: write-off artificially lower the NPA level. Artificially lower by, let's say there is 9 lakh crore, that is the NPA of a bank. Okay, now you want to reduce the NPA, so you have actually gone through the 9 lakh crore. You have analyzed that there are some loans which are due for much time, and we do not have any expectation that they will come back. Okay, so like let's say there is some 3.5 lakh crores which are there, which are, we lost the hope that they will come back. Okay, so they will do is, what they will do is they will write it off. when they write it off, so here you can say that they now only have 5.5 lakh as the NPA. So they are trying to reduce the NPA. Okay, so NPA ratio is reduced over here, and their balance sheet would look more cleaner. Okay, so that is what the idea behind over here is. So they are doing it artificially. They are not receiving the money, but they are writing it off. Okay, write-offs artificially lower the NPA levels on the paper, but do not imply full recovery of the loans. Actual recovery is somewhere around 18 to 20% only. Now moving further here, why banks are doing, or why banks are going for the write-off? So compliance with the RBI norms. Now RBI has norms to maintain a clean balance sheet. Okay, so to do that they go for the write-off. Then technical write-offs shift NPA to off balance sheet accounts while still attempting to recovery. Now these are the technical write-offs wherein they are still attempting the recovery. As I told you, the rate of recovery is less, but they are trying to recover the these NPAs. Okay, improved financial ratios reduce the visibility of NPA, making the bank appear stable. Okay, now if there is a lax NPA, so you will be saying that okay fine, this much is allowed when we are talking about the banks are giving loans and all. So you can say that from outside it will appear that banks are stable. Then loan write-offs impacts. Banks wrote off 9.9 lakh crore of loans over the last 5 financial years to reduce NPAs. This move helped reduce the gross NPA ratio to 2.67% as of March 2024. So this is the news under which we have discussed all these things. Okay, so this is about the NPAs. Okay, okay, FMN. This is FN. I guess it is MFN, most favored nation, I guess, if you are asking about that. Okay, so I'll tell you what is most favored nation. When we are talking about a kind of specific incentive, you are, let's say there is this country to which India is giving some kind of incentives, that is USA. India is giving some kind of incentives to the USA. Now there is this other country, that is Switzerland. They said that we also want that kind of incentives. Okay, now if you are giving one country some incentives, so we want that incentive as well. So here what India will do is India will give them the most favored nation status. Okay, so most favored nation status means that if now Switzerland is the most favored nation, so they will be giving all the incentives they are giving it to other countries. Okay, let's say there is one incentive in a particular duty you are giving it to USA, there is one you are giving it to Israel. Okay, there is one which you are giving it to Indonesia. Now if you are having Switzerland as most favored nation, you have to give all these incentives to Switzerland as well. Okay, so that is the concept of most favored nation. Recently Switzerland has removed India's most favored nation status. Okay, okay, fine. Now we can move further. When we talk about the India and Sri Lanka issue, I might not have used the you can say screenshot over here. Yesterday we have discussed that President Drishti IAS has visited India and they have talked about certain aspects. So they have talked about the security and the strategic cooperation here, Sri Lanka, and ensure that Sri Lanka's territory would not be used against India. Okay, so here you can say Sri Lanka assured that its territory won't be used for any activities detrimental to the India's security. So, okay, both the side agreed on the defense cooperation, maritime security, counter-terrorism, and the participation in the Colombo Security Conclave. Now, India to assist enhancing the Sri Lanka's maritime capabilities. So, these are certain things which they have talked on the security aspect, strategic cooperation aspect. Then coming to the Tamil minority issue, we have said that they will be talking on the 13th Amendment related issues, and our Prime Minister has said that we are expecting that they will be fulfilling all the constitutional mandates. Okay, so Modi urged reconciliation and the reconstruction in the Sri Lanka and implementation of the Tamil rights under the constitution that is there under the 13th Amendment. But when we are talking about the joint statement, there was the mention of 13 amendments was not there. Okay, so that is you can say one contention which will be there. Then coming to the economic and the energy partnership, so we are having this energy ties agreement on establishing electricity grid connectivity and the multi-product petroleum pipelines. Okay, so with India and Sri Lanka, we will be having electricity grid as well as the petroleum pipelines. Then India to supply LNG to Sri Lanka power plants and assist in the Sampur solar power projects. So in the field of electricity, petroleum, solar power, LNG, we will be supporting Sri Lanka. Focus on investment-led growth, connectivity, be it physical, digital or energy level, rebuilding the Sri Lanka's economy, joint effort to develop Ramayana and the Buddhist circuits. Now, when we are talking about the Ramayana and the Buddhist circuits, these are the part of enhancing the tourism. Okay, now when you talk about the Sri Lanka is part of Ramayana, as well as you know that the Buddhist culture has also been taken from India to Sri Lanka. Coming to the next one, fishermen issues. That is one of the contentious issue between India and Sri Lanka because of the you can say the kind of international waters we have over there. So leaders emphasize a humanitarian approach to address the fishermen's livelihood related issue and prevent conflict. Now, this is related to the Kachativu Island issue. We have already talked about that. Recently, I guess in the last year, some of the fishermen has been arrested by Sri Lanka. So, all these things, activities keep happening in these waters. So, that is why they have mentioned this. Now, digital collaboration, if we talk about, so we are promoting India's UPI everywhere. Okay, so one thing is that UPI based digital payments expansion will be there, and adoption of the Indian platforms like Aadhaar, GEM, DigiLocker for the governance reform. So we are giving this kind of technology to Sri Lanka, India, to assist Sri Lanka's unique digital identity. Okay, that is SLUDI project as well. Now, infrastructure and the connectivity, rehabilitation of the Sri Lankan railway system, scholarship for the Sri Lankan student and the civil servant training over 5 years, and the launch of Rameswaram Talaimanar ferry service to enhance the connectivity. Now, we already have one ferry service, that is Nagapattinam to Kankesanturai. Okay, we have discussed it yesterday, and other one is in the pipeline, that is Rameswaram to Talaimanar. Okay, so that is about India and Sri Lanka relations. Now, in the next part over here, for your own read, there is this article, Technical Mastery, Charisma, Innovation, the Genius of Zakir Hussain. You can go through this, you can try to see what kind of awards etc. which he has got. So that can be important for examination or the specifically for the PCS. So you can go through this. Now in the end, we have one question for you, that is basically the Pak Strait separates which two countries, India and Sri Lanka, India and Maldives, India Bangladesh, and India Myanmar. Okay, so you can attempt this question and answer to me in the comment box. With that, I would like to take your leave. I'll see you in the next episode. Till then, have a good day. Thank you, and please subscribe the channel.